Streaming might be what we're all doing today, but those movies and series can disappear like that. DVDs didn't do that. Cast iron pans will outlive half your appliances. Ethernet is still faster than Wi-Fi, and physical buttons don't make you scroll through 3 menus just to turn on the AC. Older technologies were just better. If you enjoy this kind of stuff, make sure to hit like and subscribe with the notification bell. It is the best way to support the channel, and I cannot thank you enough. With that being said, I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 old technologies that were better than today's. 25. Wired Ethernet. Okay, hear me out. I know, you're gonna say Wi-Fi is faster now, and yes, the new versions can hit crazy speeds. But guys, when it comes to staying steady, Ethernet still wins. And also, don't you just love the little click when you plug it in? If you're wired, you cut out the interference, the walls, and the random neighbor streaming Netflix on the same frequency. That means less lag, more consistency, and almost perfect gameplay or video calls. I mean, come on, gamers swear by it for a reason. Tests have also shown that wired links give lower latency and avoid the spikes that Wi-Fi still struggles with, even on the latest routers. It's less convenient than sitting on your couch, but if you want reliability, nothing beats that cable. 24. Buttons and knobs. You know what I trust more than a touchscreen? A knob. And that goes for every appliance we now use in our homes. Twist left, twist right, and you're good. There are no error message, no please update firmware type notifications, and definitely no sensor ignoring you because your hands are wet, greasy, or whatever. Consumer Reports has tested this stuff for years, and the sturdy mechanical designs keep scoring higher for durability. It makes sense. A dial doesn't care about software, and a button doesn't go out of style when the new model drops. Touch panels may look prettier, but pretty doesn't help when your oven decides it can't read your finger and you're standing there yelling at a piece of glass. Literally, I just saw on Reddit the other day, someone couldn't use their oven because they got locked out of it. Why do we need ovens that can be... 23. Proper media. Streaming can giveth and taketh away. Trust me, whole catalogs have been removed, and the same thing pretty much happens when an artist suddenly decides they're done with the platform. You wake up one morning, that album or movie you thought you had is gone. That's where owning the disc, the vinyl, or even a VHS tape beats the subscription model. Buying a record gives a musician a direct cut too, instead of the pennies trickling in from thousands of streams. And let's be honest, it's fun. Who doesn't love flipping through a friend's CD collection or finding a rare record at a local shop? That's ownership you can actually hold in your hands. 22. Dedicated handheld GPS units. Phones are great until you're neck deep in the woods with 3% battery and no charger. That's where the old school handheld GPS units still crush it. Garmin and similar brands design these things for people who actually need navigation off-grid. Hikers, hunters, surveyors, people who can't risk their device dying halfway through. Yes, your phone's GPS still works without service, but you have to download maps in advance, and it chews through the battery if you're tracking all day. A dedicated GPS runs for days on replaceable batteries, shrugs off rain, cold, and drops, and has maps baked in. You can mark waypoints, track your path, and keep going long after your phone gives up. So while phones do win on convenience, if you're relying on navigation where, oops, no signal isn't an option, a handheld GPS is still the better tool. 21. Wired headphones. Look, I get why people love Bluetooth. I mean, I have these babies right here. No tangles, no cord yanking your phone off the table, but you're trading in a whole pile of problems for that convenience. Wired headphones don't need charging, don't generate e-waste when the batteries die, and don't randomly drop out when you're in a room full of other Bluetooth gadgets. And let's talk sound. Even the best wireless codecs still chop things down to good enough, while a decent wired pair pushes the full signal with no lag. That's why studio cans like the Sennheiser HD800S make Bluetooth sets look like toys. Sound guys pointed out that latency is unavoidable with Bluetooth, which is why wired is still the go-to for pros. Then there's the money. Why pay extra for batteries you didn't ask for when the wired version of the same model is cheaper and lasts longer? Sometimes the cable is the smarter buy. 20. Game cartridges. Old school cartridges used solid-state ROM, which meant no moving parts to scratch or skip like CDs. You dropped one, picked it back up, and it still worked. Discs? One bad scratch and the boss fight was toast. They were also fast. Consoles could read data straight off the cartridge, so games loaded instantly. No waiting around for spinning plastic to catch up. Hackaday even pointed out that the mask ROM chips inside old carts are so stable that they can last decades without degrading, which is why so many still fire right up today. I'll admit, they were more expensive to make, which is why the industry made the jump to discs. But for durability, speed, and plug-and-play reliability, nothing beats a good old game cartridge. And somehow we all knew to blow into them. I don't know how, but we did. 19. Cast iron cookware. I don't know about where you live, but it's making a comeback in a big way. After all the years of non-stick Teflon marketing being reduced to "it gives you cancer," the good old cast iron skillet is back on the stove. These pots and pans are basically immortal. Consumer Reports notes that with a little seasoning, cast iron can last not just decades, but generations. The secret is in the weight. It holds heat like a champ, browns better than most modern pans, and doesn't add a chemical coating to your food. Once it's seasoned, it's nearly non-stick anyway. That's why people are still dragging grandma's skillet out of the cupboard and cooking like it's 1920. Cast iron just gets better with age. 18. Quartz Wristwatches. Smartwatches want attention every night, but a quartz watch will tick for years on a single cell. In fact, 2 to 5 years is the norm, sometimes more. And you don't need a charger cluttering your desk. Pop in a fresh battery, and you're set. Brands like Rolex and Tag didn't stop at telling time either. You get divers models that can handle ridiculous water pressure, stunning racing chronographs that can time-lapse down to fractions of a second, and a lot of those quartz watches glow in the dark or carry extra dials without sacrificing accuracy. It's simple engineering that outlives the hype. 17. AA and AAA User-Replaceable Batteries. You and I both know that a phone starts acting like it's 90 years old after a couple of years. It's happened to all of us. All of a sudden, your phone's begging for a charger halfway through the day, and it's not like you can pop off the back and swap the battery anymore. It's the same story with a lot of laptops, which brings me to the beauty of devices that ran, or still run, on AA or AAAs. Whenever the batteries died, you just popped in a new pair. Rechargeables made it even better. Rotate a few sets and you're covered. So you'll probably be happy to know that the EU passed a regulation forcing companies to make user-replaceable designs standard again by 2027. That regulation covers laptops and cell phones too. 16. Cash. I know. Cash isn't really a technology, but it still beats half the payment systems we're stuck with today. Cash doesn't need passwords, usernames, or an internet connection. And it definitely doesn't freeze with that little spinning wheel of death at the checkout. You just hand it over and transaction done. It also works when nothing else does. Power outage? You're still good. Payment terminals offline? Pfft, no problem. And it covers the stuff contactless just can't touch, like tipping a valet, splitting a cab fare, or buying food from a roadside stand. It doesn't track you, and it doesn't build a corporate profile around your shopping, or that midnight pizza delivery habits. Which is why we should actually be doing everything we can to stop it from being removed from our lives. Probably gonna look amazing on green screen, but we'll find out. 15. Emergency alerts over broadcast radio. In the US, emergency alerts now go straight to your phone through the wireless emergency alert system. I actually know other countries are rolling out their own versions too. For example, Australia has their new national messaging system, and Denmark runs something called Siren that does more or less the same thing. These setups are fast and modern, but they all have the same exact weakness. They need cell towers, servers, and power grids to stay alive. Broadcast radio doesn't really have that issue. A single transmitter can blanket an entire region with important updates, and as long as you have a battery-powered set, you'll hear it. Governments keep these systems alive because they know full well that if the grid fails, this one still gets the message out. 14. Optical Discs. CDs and DVDs might be seen as relics from the good old days, but archivists treat them as gold. The Library of Congress and NIST have actually done us a favor and studied them. And a lot of those recordable discs can hold data for 30 years or more without breaking a sweat. That's longer than most hard drives, flash sticks, or cloud services stick around. Unlike spinning platters or chips that wear down, discs don't rely on different parts or constant power. If you store them as you should, they'll be perfect on that day you suddenly need them. That's why libraries, museums, even the odd government agency still burn discs when they want a backup that's immune to ransomware or subscription fees. Feel free to call them outdated, but no hacker has ever held a stack of DVDs for ransom. 13. Slide projectors. Slide projectors were basically the bulldozers of yonder year's presentation technology. Big trays of plastic, a lamp that could double as a space heater, and a button that went clunk. In 3 words, they were awesome. Modern projectors might give you a 4K video, but they also love to choke on HDMI handshakes, freeze when they suddenly decide to run updates, or proudly display no signal while your audience stares at a blank wall. Anyone who's tried to present a slideshow at a meeting or a wedding knows exactly what I'm talking about. The worst thing that could happen was a jammed slide, which, compared to rebooting a digital projector mid-meeting, is nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Ka-chink. 12. Cars with fewer electronics. Isn't it funny how a check engine light can mean a bad sensor, a loose gas cap, or something that costs as much as a family vacation? The older cars weren't perfect, but at least you knew what broke. And I don't even know if we want to start talking about costs. A faulty tire pressure sensor or a dead touchscreen can run up a bill that makes you wonder if the car itself is even worth it. I'm not saying the older cars were simple, but they were definitely more, let's just say, straightforward. If you had a socket set and a manual, you could almost handle the repairs yourself. According to AAA, electronics are driving repair bills sky high, and surveys back them up. People are actually missing the days when a wrench, not a diagnostic scanner, was enough. 11. Mechanical typewriters. You don't realize just how spoiled you are until your laptop decides a 2 gig update matters more than the paragraph you were writing. A typewriter never pulled that stunt. You fed it paper, slammed the keys, and it gave you ink on the page. That was that. These machines weren't polite either. They clacked, they dinged, they jammed if you got sloppy. They forced you to slow down and commit. Their rapid rise in popularity came from the fact that a lot of famous people, like Mark Twain, jumped on them early. And by the late 1800s, offices were ditching handwriting altogether because one typist could outwork a small team with pens. Today, the humble mechanical typewriter seems to be undergoing some kind of renewal. Whole communities restore them, trade them, even make music with them. I kid you not, there is an actual typewriter orchestra. Go check them out on YouTube, they're actually quite good. 10. Standalone MP3 Players. Smartphones, yes, I'm bringing it back out, killed a lot of gadgets, but the humble MP3 players still refuse to die. And for good reason. It's cheap, distraction-free, and doesn't bother you with notifications when you're mid-song. You want music? You got it. Back in the iPod days, or Zune, just thumbing that wheel almost made it worth it. Today, however, it's more about the practical benefits. Students sneak them into classrooms where phones are banned, workers use them on factory floors where cameras aren't allowed, and runners love them because streaming doesn't eat their data plan. Audiophiles swear by them too. Dedicated players still handle things like FLAC without choking, and a lot of them come with actual buttons and volume wheels. So while most people surrendered everything to the phone, there does seem to be a quiet rebellion going on. For real, bring back the Zune. That was awesome. I never owned one. I wanted one. Never owned an MP3. Never owned an iPod either. So 9. Film cameras. There's a reason professional photographers still carry those bulky Canons and old Nikons around when their phones could technically do the job. It simply plays by different rules. Film is capable of handling light in a way that sensors still haven't cracked. Blow out the highlights on digital and they're gone forever. With film, you get detail in the shadows and the bright spots all in the same frame. That's why portraits shot on Porta or Fuji still look richer than the film filter apps trying to copy them. And let's talk grain. Digital noise looks ugly and fake, but film grain feels alive. It adds texture, depth, something you actually want in a photo. 8. Wired game controllers. If you've ever had a controller die on you in the middle of a match, you already know why some gamers never leave the wire behind. A USB cord might look ugly, but it solves 3 problems instantly. No batteries, no syncing issues, no surprise disconnects. Competitive players swear by them because every millisecond counts. There's no signal traveling through the air, no Bluetooth traffic to fight with. You hit jump, it jumps. And the price difference? Huge. A decent wired pad can cost less than half what the fancy wireless models go for, and you still get extras like remappable buttons or Hall effect joysticks that barely wear down. The downside is obvious. There's a cable running through the living room. But if your biggest complaint is, I have to sit closer to the screen, well, you're doing pretty well. 7. Swamp coolers. Instead of compressing refrigerants and blasting cold air, all this thing needs is water changing from liquid to vapor. That phase change grabs heat out of the air without needing a compressor that sucks up your electricity bill. In dry climates, they absolutely shine. When the air's warm, a swamp cooler can drop the temperature by a decent amount using almost nothing more than fan power and water. Your energy bill stays low, and you're not dealing with refrigerants, environmental worries, or complicated ductwork. It isn't perfect though. If the climate's humid, like here in Florida, the same cooler might just add moist grossness instead of relief. But when it works so well that you start to wonder why we ever complicated cooling in the first place. 6. Beepers and pagers. If you were around in the 90s, you'll know what pagers are. But while we don't see them all that much anymore, they never actually went away. In fact, doctors, firefighters, and IT workers still carry them because they do things phones can't. Let's start with battery life. A pager runs for days, sometimes weeks, on a single charge. Then there's reliability. Pager signals use dedicated radio networks that cut through congestion when cell networks collapse, which is exactly what happens in a blackout or when everyone's phone is jammed during an emergency. They're also harder to track. Dirt cheap compared to smartphones, and they don't bombard you with apps or endless alerts. You won't binge shows on it, but it won't miss a life or death alert either. 5. CRT displays. You may not agree with me, but CRTs still handle motion better than the expensive flat screens we use nowadays. The reason's simple. They don't smear. Every frame on a CRT is sharp. Every frame on a CRT is a sharp flash that disappears almost instantly. When your eyes track movement, they're following those clean bursts, not a glowing image that hangs around too long. LCDs and OLEDs still hold the frame until the next one, so fast motion drags across your vision and looks fuzzy. That's why scrolling text on your phone still gets blurry, even if you got a 120Hz panel. Modern monitors try to imitate that sharpness with blur reduction settings, but the reality is that it rarely works, and usually leads to darker images and more eye strain. 4. IBM Model M mechanical keyboards. Most keyboards today feel like tapping on a sponge, if you can feel it at all. The IBM Model M was the exact opposite. It was 5 pounds of steel and plastic, with keys that snap back at you like they meant it. You knew the key register the moment it went down, which meant less mistakes and faster typing. And its durability was on another level. People are still using originals built in the 80s while modern boards give out after a couple years. You could spill coffee on a Model M, pry the keys off, clean it, and keep going. Even the layout stuck. The design choices IBM locked in back then, like duplicate control and alt keys, a big enter, and standardized navigation, became the template for everything that followed. The difference is that modern versions are disposable, while the Model M was built to outlive the people who created it. 3. The Telegram. No, not the app, but I won't blame you if that was your first thought. I'm talking about the real thing. Short, sharp messages sent in Morse code across wires and handed you at the door with a dramatic telegram. The very first one went out in 1844, reading, "What hath God wrought?" By the late 20s, over 200 million telegrams were zipping around the globe every year. Every word costs money, so prepositions, articles, and even politeness were optional. One guidebook even argued businesses could save millions if they dropped the word please. So why were they better than email? Well, for one, everything you said was trimmed down. You chose your words carefully. Also, telegrams were taken seriously. You didn't get 5 spammy FYIs in a row. Emails are fast, free, detachable, and disposable. telegrams demanded a bit of finesse and a lot of focus. 2. Copper landline telephones. Say what you want about the good old landlines and phones, but they had 2 tricks up their sleeves that modern mobiles still can't match. First, they powered themselves. The current came straight through the copper, so even if the lights went out, you could still pick up the receiver and call for help. Second, a landline set you back maybe $20 a month. Today, most smartphone bills climb past $80 to $100, and that's before you start paying off the phone itself. 1. Dumb phones. While I'm on the subject, why don't we end today's list with a dumb phone? The humble brick that walked so smartphones could run. And before you say anything, let me just say Nokia 3310, okay? That settles everything and anything you can throw at me. There's a huge market for feature phones to this day. In fact, in 2023, 3 million units were sold in the US alone, and the global market is worth over $10 billion a year. Less really is more. A dumb phone doesn't suck you into doom scrolling at 2 a.m. It doesn't hit you with hundreds of notifications, and its battery doesn't wave a white flag by dinner. People are buying them for their kids, and a growing crowd of digital detoxers seem to be driving the trend. Yeah, it didn't have widgets, but it sure had peace of mind. And I'll leave it at that. But I do have one last thing. Trivia question for all you gamers out there. Let's see if you were convinced. What gave the old school game cartridges the edge over discs? Was it A, instant load times, B, no skipping or scratching, C, built like tanks, or D, all of the above? Leave your answers in the comments and let me know which kind of list you would love to see next. If you're only getting started and would like to see some more content like this, well then, you need to watch our related video, 25 Forgotten Inventions That Revolutionized Our Lives. From machines that powered entire industries to devices we take for granted, these were the real game changers. The link will appear right here in just a few moments. Thank you guys again for watching. Like I said, like, share, comment, subscribe, notification bell, and I'll catch you guys again next time. Peace.